They had all been whispering about her before she even walked into the room. People expected her scars to be a reason for rejection, a mark of the past they thought no one could look past. But what they didn't know was that tonight, a single dad with a gentle heart and an open mind would completely shatter their assumptions. His name is Mark, a man raising his young daughter on his own, careful and protective, yet always searching for honesty and courage in the people around him. And then there was Lily, quiet, reserved, carrying a story in her skin that most would shy away from. The moment she stepped into his living room, nervous and hesitant, you could almost feel the tension in the air. Would he see her scars and recoil, or would he notice the strength behind them? Friends and family watched from the sidelines, ready to gasp at what they expected to be rejection. But what happened next wasn't anything they had imagined. Mark's eyes met hers, and for a heartbeat, the room went silent. His expression wasn't one of shock or discomfort, it was something deeper, something that made everyone pause. The single dad who had always protected his heart now faced a choice that could either change both their lives forever or leave them both heartbroken, and then he spoke. What he said next didn't just surprise Lily, it left the entire room holding their breath. No one could have predicted this reaction, and it's the kind of moment that will stay with you long after the video ends. Mark's words hung in the air, gentle but filled with the curiosity that made Lily's heart race. She had spent years hiding, covering, and convincing herself that no one could truly see her for who she was. Her scars weren't just physical, they were memories of struggles, of moments she wished had never happened. And yet, here was a man who didn't flinch, who didn't step back, and whose eyes seemed to hold understanding instead of judgment. As Lily looked around, she noticed the subtle glances from Mark's daughter. Emma, the little girl, tilted her head, sensing something she couldn't quite name, something brave and beautiful in the way Lily held herself. It was a rare moment, where vulnerability met genuine warmth, a moment that was fragile but electric. Mark cleared his throat and leaned back, his calm demeanor hiding a story of his own. Raising a daughter alone had taught him patience, empathy, and the importance of seeing beyond appearances. He had learned that life often left marks on people, both visible and invisible, and that kindness was the bridge that connected two worlds. But even with his wisdom, there was a part of him that felt the weight of the unknown. He wanted to ask about the scars, to understand the story behind them, but he also didn't want to rush her, to make her feel exposed. Lily's hand trembled slightly as she moved closer to the couch, and for a moment, silence became louder than words. Outside, the night seemed to hold its breath, as if even the world was waiting to see how this meeting between a single dad and a woman with a past would unfold. Something unspoken lingered between them, a secret, a fear, and a hope that neither of them could ignore. Lily shifted nervously, her fingers fidgeting with the hem of her sweater. She wanted to explain, to tell Mark the story behind every scar, but the words felt heavy on her tongue. Each mark carried a memory, some painful, some bitter. Revealing them all felt like opening a door she wasn't sure she was ready to unlock. Meanwhile, Mark watched her carefully, his mind running through 1,000 possibilities. He wondered if people had hurt her, if life had been cruel, or if she had carried the weight of her own choices. He didn't ask yet. Instead, he let her set the pace, understanding that trust had to be earned, not demanded. Emma, curious and perceptive beyond her years, tugged lightly at Mark's sleeve. "Daddy, is she okay?" she whispered. Her innocence added another layer to the tension in the room. Emma didn't see the scars as most adults might. She saw someone who seemed strong but also a little afraid, someone who might need a friend more than anything else. Mark nodded slowly, not offering an answer yet, signaling that he trusted both Lily and his daughter to navigate the moment together. Meanwhile, in the background, neighbors and friends had begun to murmur quietly about the meeting. Some expected drama, others braced for awkwardness, but what they didn't realize was that the real conflict wasn't the scars themselves, it was the fear of connection, the challenge of opening hearts after years of pain. Lily's past, Mark's protective instincts, and Emma's tender curiosity all collided in ways that no one in the room could predict. And then, as if on cue, a phone buzzed on the table, breaking the fragile stillness. The message on the screen hinted at something from Lily's past that she hadn't shared yet, something that could change everything in an instant. The room went quiet again, each heartbeat louder than the last. As the tension reached a new peak, leaving everyone wondering how this evening would unfold, Lily's eyes flicked to the phone, her breath catching as if she had just been reminded of a weight she hadn't lifted in years. The notification glowed brightly, a stark contrast to the dim living room, and for a moment it felt like the entire world had narrowed to that tiny screen. Mark noticed the shift immediately, the way her shoulders tensed, how her lips pressed together, and the flicker of fear in her eyes. He leaned forward slightly, silently signaling that he was ready to listen, but also prepared for whatever truth she might bring. Emma, sensing the tension, scooted closer to her father, her small hand resting gently on his arm. "Is she going to be okay, Daddy?" she asked, her voice a mix of concern and curiosity. Mark didn't answer. Instead, he gave a reassuring squeeze to Emma's hand, his gaze locked on Lily, silently telling her that whatever she was about to reveal, she wasn't alone. Lily's fingers hovered over the screen, She knew that one tap could change everything, could open a door to a past she had tried to bury, and a future she desperately wanted to protect. Around them, the room seemed to hold its breath. Shadows from the lamp danced across the walls, echoing the tension that wrapped the space like a heavy blanket. Then came a sudden knock at the door, sharp and unexpected. The timing made Lily flinch, her heart racing faster than it had all evening. Mark rose instinctively, protective but cautious, while Emma clutched at his shirt. The knock wasn't just a sound, it was a signal that the outside world, with its judgments, expectations, and secrets, was about to collide with the fragile moment in the living room. And as Lily slowly reached for her phone, the audience could almost feel the suspense coil tighter, knowing that the next few moments would push every character to the edge. Would Mark react with understanding, or would the weight of her past finally test the limits of his compassion? The tension was unbearable, and the answer remained just out of reach, hanging in the air like a storm ready to break. Just as Lily's fingers brushed the screen, the knock at the door came again, this time louder, more insistent. Mark's eyes narrowed, a protective instinct kicking in. But before he could move, the door creaked open on its own. A shadow fell across the threshold, and a voice, familiar yet unexpected, called out, "Lily, we need to talk." Lily froze, her face drained of color, and for a moment, the room seemed to tilt. The visitor wasn't a stranger, they were someone from her past, someone connected to the scars she had tried so hard to leave behind. The air grew heavier, charged with tension as memories she had buried threatened to surface in front of Mark, Emma, and the few neighbors who had quietly been watching through the window. Mark stepped forward, placing himself slightly in front of Lily. His mind raced, trying to read the situation, balancing his protective instincts with the desire to understand her past. Emma hid behind his leg, her eyes wide, sensing that something serious had shifted in the room. The calm, almost tender moment they had shared just minutes ago now felt fragile, threatened by an invisible force that none of them could ignore. The visitor stepped fully into the light, and Mark caught a glimpse of an expression that was part anger, part regret. "You didn't think I'd let this go, did you?" the voice said, directed at Lily. The tension spiked. This wasn't just about scars or past pain anymore. It was about secrets, unfinished stories, and a confrontation that could shatter the fragile trust Lily had begun to build. As Lily's hand trembled over her phone, ready to answer a message or perhaps call for help, the audience is left holding their breath. The stakes had just been raised. The single dad, the little girl, and the woman with a past were all now caught in a storm that no one could predict, and the next moments promised to push them to their limits. Mark's eyes locked on the figure at the door, his protective instincts flaring, but before he could say a word, Lily stepped forward, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. "It's okay," she said, looking directly at the visitor. "I'm not running anymore." The tension in the room was palpable, every heartbeat echoing as the past and present collided. The visitor's expression softened, and for a moment, the anger in their eyes gave way to regret. "I never wanted this to happen," they admitted, their voice low. I didn't know how to help." Lily nodded slowly, letting the words sink in. Mark could see the relief and the vulnerability in her eyes, the very thing he had sensed from the beginning, the humanity behind the scars. Emma, still clutching her father's leg, peeked out and whispered, "She's brave, Daddy." Mark smiled, a mix of pride and awe, realizing that the true strength